As the great Winston Churchill once said, slow and steady wins the race. And of course, that's not an actual Churchill quote. I made that up and I made the meme online probably about 2 or 3 minutes ago. So that aside, that reality is actually very much true for the Midtown housing market. And that's very interesting considering if you're like me and you know a lot of the parts of the GTA, maybe some of you don't, there are areas right now that have absolutely no showings, absolutely dead, not one business card on the kitchen table, so to speak, for those who know to sell, we leave business cards. And while other areas of the GTA are actually having occasional multiple offers. Now, not all the time, I did say occasional, but still, it's a vast difference between many parts of the GTA. The Midtown area specifically, interestingly, is doing pretty well. Consistently, steadily, month after month, Midtown is one of those areas. One of the main reasons I like it is the steadiness of the market there. And let me get into that a little bit more. And, Winston Churchill aside, get you to the July 2025 Midtown housing market update, the essential one. I say essential because this is the one you really need to hear because it's the actual numbers, nothing exaggerated, nothing, no clickbait, anything. So as always, beautiful people, I'm Andrew the Realtor. Welcome to this. I'll try to get through this a little bit faster than others. Some of you, or many of you probably, know that I do a full-on GTA-wide housing market update. It's it's quite thorough, longer than this one. I'll leave a little video underneath my face here for a little bit, and I'm going to leave a little video link at the end of the video as well if you guys finish this to the end. So what we're going to talk about this month real quick is Midtown is more stable. I already mentioned that than the rest of the GTA. I'll show you the numbers so you know for sure. And we're going to talk about inflation, interest rates, and mortgage renewals rather briefly because it's an important thing playing more and more into what's happening in the market in GTA wide, and it does affect Midtown. And I'm going to do a quick note on power of sales. Not that there's a cascade of them or anything like that, but it's something worthy of note, especially some information I received recently, and what buyers and sellers should be doing right now. I'm going to give you guys the stuff, and you guys do with it what you will. So I appreciate your time. As always, this is just valuable information to you, the people in the actual local housing market. I don't go too wide. I know Canada-wide. I go GTA-wide. And here I go narrow it down really to one of my favorite areas, Midtown Toronto. And on the left there is a QR code. You feel free to scan that, and that takes you to my little real estate experience. Hit like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And feel free to comment. I don't give any comments. People just usually watch and go their way. If you have any questions, stuff, you can literally leave it in the comment. Chances are somebody else has the same question. You can always contact me directly as well. So let me get to this. These are the actual numbers. So I'm going to go Midtown first, and I'm going to go Midtown versus the GTA. Not too much, but just the basic things. You notice a lot of green, which is great. Green is good, basically, go, so to speak. Property sold. One of the first things you'll notice, property sold in Midtown specifically, and Midtown asterisk, it's what I'll call Midtown. There's Google Midtown, there's the Toronto map Midtown, there is what real estate agents have as kind of a Midtown areas. So, take that with a little bit of grain of salt, but I'm using the same thing every time, so clearly there's a theme developed over these months that I'm doing these. So property sold in general, very, very similar. And you'll find in the GTA, if you look on the right, June versus June, which is the numbers we have, June 25 versus June of last year, very similar numbers, almost no difference. So that's actually good. Midtown, as always, just a little bit ahead, which is fantastic. But nonetheless, GTA-wide is doing as well, pretty well. So the next thing, here's where we start to notice a bit of a difference. And you find all properties in Midtown specifically, are up about 3 to 4%. So actually up a little bit versus June of last year. This is all properties, total average of all properties. We can see the difference. GTA-wide, looking at the same kind of criteria, are actually down about 5%. That's not a huge drop. I understand that's, and again, it involves so many areas and so many different properties. But in general, that's pretty good. So Midtown, a little ahead of the class on this one. The one thing where you'll notice a huge drop, but again, I'll explain, is 10% in freehold properties specifically. That's freehold properties. But again, listen, when you have 122 sales, you have to take the thing average with a bit of a grain of salt, because you could easily have a few more sales of lower priced freehold properties, and that puts everything down because it's not difficult to pull down 122 properties in terms of average price. So take that with a grain of salt, because you'll also notice, by the way, that semi-detached homes, year over year, June, was down 28.5%. Now, does that mean that if you own a semi-detached home in Midtown, that your home is now 28.5% lower in value than it was June of 2024? No, absolutely not. That's not the case. But this is an average sales and that kind of thing. So take that with a grain of salt. But clearly, some people, because there were only 18 sold, some sellers sold too low, more than likely. I'll touch on that towards the end when I talk to sellers specifically, but that happens a lot right now because people get anxious and they think, oh, no one's going to buy it. They think the price is always the thing. It's not always the thing. Anyway, but interesting, again, back to something positive. Average days on market right here. You're looking at about 16, give or take. And versus the GTA listing, just the listing, never mind, because you can relist it many times, was 26, and of course property days on market is 42. And one of the reasons that for the more steady aspect of the Midtown housing market update is the active listings. So new listings, pretty much the same. New listings up, what, 8 point something percent, 7 point something percent here. That's normal. New listings are coming up. There's more and more stuff going on in the market. Sure, okay. Active listings. Active listings are only up 3% in Midtown. Active listings in the GTA wide are up 30%. That's a big difference. That's a huge difference. Inventory in Midtown is still a little more manageable. That's where things are selling well, things are moving or selling better or moving better than they're on the rest of GTA. So overall, again, Midtown, for many, many reasons. You live there, you know why. The schools, the area, the quietness, the proximity to downtown, the liveliness, and at the same time privacy. Some of these streets are so quiet. I've been in some of your backyards. You can't hear anything. It feels like a little forest. So anyway, that's really, really nice. One of the many reasons Midtown does well. Now, we're going to move on to stuff that's going to, okay, we're going to start prognosticating a little bit forward. So, okay, what we think is going to happen with the market is the steadiness going to continue, or maybe it's going to pick up or it's going to go down. So one of the big things that we've been talking about for the past few years, thanks to the Bank of Canada's new, more profound role, so to speak, at least they're more visible the past few years, is inflation rates. Inflation rates are important. This isn't there are other inflation rates, core, and all kinds of more convoluted things that I don't even pretend to fully understand. However, generally speaking, of course, the height is 8.1%. That was back in June of 22. That's when it was just crazy, and if we started making bank cuts. But now, last month was 1.9, slightly higher than the 1.7 we saw the previous 2 months, which isn't good necessarily, but it's well under 2%, which we were always told 2 to 3% is a target. And 1.9 is well, maybe not significantly, but certainly lower than that. So inflation rates are not really going up. So I'm trying to develop a theme here. So follow me here. So inflation's pretty steady. But because it went up, there's a chance that in next Bank of Canada announcement, which is July the 30th, and that's what this is talking about here, will probably stay flat. So the interest rates will not get cut this month. More than likely, it seems a lot of people are saying, economists and that kind of thing, because of the inflation going up ever so slightly. So why am I mentioning this in the housing market updates? Because interest rates, as we know, inflation affects interest rates, and interest rates affect home sales to a pretty great degree, depending on the rate. So this is what's been happening. I mean, it's been a steady downward, which is great. And the past few while we have been sitting kind of flat, April and June, and I think July is probably going to be something similar because uncertainty in the market. The economy is not exactly where we want it to be, and of course, Bank of Canada has to kind of play along with that. So that's probably going to stay flat. However, a lot of people are saying at least another couple of cuts before the end of the year, which would put us down from 2.75 to 2.25, maybe even 2. That's what a lot of people are saying. That's what I think personally is still going to happen. Now, how are mortgage payments going to be, renewals going to be affected by this? So the reason I mention this is a lot of people in the Midtown that I've talked to, and I'm sure you're thinking, okay, Andrew, respectfully, my home is not in that first-time home buyer. My home is not, the buyer for my home is not the type that's going to be affected by a slight change in interest rates because they're probably a lot more financially capable. That's where they're able to buy a $2-3 million home. Now, you're absolutely right. However, those people need to sell something. And the people buying the thing that they need to sell, they're going to be affected. So one of the things that we don't always realize, but if you think about it real quick, it makes absolute sense, is you have people looking to buy a condo, and you have people looking to sell that condo to move up to a townhome or a semi, and then those people are looking to sell that townhome or a semi to move up to a home that is bigger or probably more expensive in an area that they really like Midtown. So there's this effect. And so if the condo's not sold, and the condo market is the slowest right now, then the person who needs to sell the condo to buy the townhome doesn't move. And so that the townhome doesn't get bought. And the person who owns a townhome doesn't move up their family to buy the detached or semi-detached in the Midtown area. So you see how it has its effect. So this will have an effect. And why I mentioned this specifically is that there are going to be more power sales, probably not a huge cascade of them. However, larger power sales on the market means more homes on the market, means higher inventory, means market slowing down a little bit. And these are the general numbers that we're going to see. 25. This is Canada-wide, so it's hard to narrow down specifics. But it's about 60% of all outstanding mortgages in Canada are going to be expected to renew this year or next year. So that's a big deal. And all of them are going to be higher. So about 60% they're 60% of the mortgage will expect to see a payment increase. And of course, that's the case because chances are they bought a 5-year or a 3 or 5 year, and the rates back then were much lower than they are now. And compared to December 24 payments, average monthly mortgage payment could be 10% higher for those renewing in 25 and 6% higher in those renewing in 2026. So the point being higher. So mortgage is going to be higher for a lot of people. Now, 10% higher does not usually change life entirely. However, there are some differences, and that's the last part here. This is really important. Again, think maybe not of yourself or person buying your house, but the person selling buying the house that person buying yours needs to sell. Overall numbers, large differences between borrowers and between types of products. So if you look at average payment increase of about 15 to 20% for someone with a fixed rate versus somebody who's has a variable rate, which is you're looking at about 5 to 7%. So the kind of product makes a difference. So listen, let's details aside in case I'm boring you with all the little numbers and stuff. In general, there is going to be a little difficulty for people with mortgages this year and next, which tells me, and realtors like myself who follow the market, that inventory is going to continue to be pretty high. There's very little chance that inventory is going to start narrowing down to where it was like in 22 or 21 or 2017, way down to where there's multiple offers on everything. It'll be a while before something like that happens because there's a glut of condos, there's a glut of inventory in general even right now, and that's going to continue because probably more and more people will be hitting the market. Some because they have to, a very, very small number because they have to, but a larger number than that probably because they want to, because they're noticing their expenses are a little bit higher. And if you're looking at 20% higher in terms of mortgage and stuff, some people might be saying, hey, this is probably a good time for us to downsize or buy something else a little more affordable and save on the monthly cost. So that's a thing. And of course, with interest rates cuts coming this year, maybe that'll alleviate this a little bit. But nonetheless, this is a reality. So what I'm trying to build in terms of a theme here is interest rates are probably going to maintain. Inflation is probably going to maintain fairly well. Inventory is going to remain high, so the market is going to be as it is right now, give or take, for quite a while, with steady rates but higher inventory. Now, the reason I mentioned interest rates specifically, I'm going to make a little pause to do power sales. Just in the past week, I got some information about two specific properties, near a little southwest of southwest of Midtown. They're looking at the Annex area and Little Italy, and so. They were both power sales. Clearly, people who owned them were not able to maintain them, and it happened to be multiplexes. So why I mentioned that is I also got some great information about what power sales are. And as there are going to be more power sales, not a huge lot, but there's going to be some. I do have people ask me for bank sales. Oh, is it a great deal, Andrew? And you know what? In all reality, it's not always a great deal. It can be a great deal, but there are these three things right here that are really important. Thanks to John Zanetti K, the law firm. They sent out this information. I thought this was very worthwhile. I've worked with power sales, so this is actually really important. If you know anything about them, or maybe you're thinking about getting something, there might be a power sale. First and foremost, it's sold as is where it is. So what you see is what you get, and what you don't see is what you get as well. So visible or hidden, whatever, any defects, anything is all yours. The bank, the lender, the mortgage company who owns the home, who's trying to sell it at power sale, they're saying it's all yours. We're not taking warranty, guarantee of anything whatsoever. All the problems, if there are any, are absolutely and totally yours. You can get an inspection, of course, and then say, no, we don't want it, but that's a condition. Once that's done, it's yours. There's no duty to repair. So mortgagee is generally not required to spend money on repairs or improvements. So nothing needs to be done. So you can't ask, well, listen, could you fix this before? No, not going to happen. And no representation regarding permits, zoning, or legal use. That is a big deal. They're basically saying it is what it is. If it's legal, great. If it's not legal, it's out of our hands. So does HST apply? We don't care. It's up to you. And tax residence status of the seller. None of these things they know. So there's a lot of due diligence involved if you're looking to buy a power sale. So at least have your realtor, perhaps myself, go through that. Where has this been? Is any applicable? Is the zoning okay? When you saw the house, were there clearly things that are done without permits? And are there permits for anything that's been done? Those kind of things are important. If you can find that out, great. But again, nothing is warranted on that side of the seller. And interesting, title ownership does not pass for appliances and fixtures. So if there's any warranties or on any of the appliances or anything, you're not getting anything. As a matter of fact, they're not even guaranteeing that all the appliances necessarily, this is depending on it's a case-by-case basis, but they're not even guaranteeing that some of the stuff will be there. So there might be a chandelier in the kitchen, like, oh, that's actually quite decent. And then closing, you say, oh, it's not there. Well, sorry. Unless it's specifically in the contract, sorry. Normally that would be included, but last minute, whatever. So the point is, power sale, you got to be careful, pay attention to all the details, and be ready for always be ready for something that is hidden, something that you haven't noticed. It's going to probably cost you a little bit more money. There is a right of redemption. This very rarely happens, but this is also important. The lender will stop the sale, literally stop the sale, if the previous owner, the one who went into not foreclosure, but I guess a different word, is able to somehow come up with the money. Now, it's rare because you're looking at costs of the home or costs of whatever's left of the mortgage that they haven't paid, and then legal fees and then taxes and blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of costs. But if for some reason they win the lottery or something, they can buy the house back and the sale will stop. That's also in the contract, which is a very long one. So take heed of that. And the reason I mentioned that is because previously I mentioned the mortgage renewals, and if anybody does come into power of sale, you'll see it on the market. You want to know what you can do with it. This is actually really important. So maybe pause this and maybe, I don't know, save a screenshot or something of it. So guys, let's get right to the end of this. So Midtown buyers, what should you be doing this summer? This is very similar to my last month because not too much has changed, thankfully, hence the steadiness. So GTA inventory is very high in general. So very high overall. So if you're moving outside of Midtown or if you're just concerned about the market in general, inventory is very high. Inventory is pretty high in Midtown, not as high as the rest of GTA. Sellers are motivated and flexible. I've talked to many of them. So many are watching this right now. But 99% of them are not desperate, which is fantastic as far as I'm concerned. I hate desperation. That's never good business. So if you're looking to buy, be realistic and fair. Look at the market. The prices are good. Sellers can and will negotiate. There's a lot of stuff you can do on the buyer side in terms of conditions and clauses as well. So you should really take advantage of this. And that's something I've been trying to get to buyers to think about in this summer and really in the spring of this year as well. So sale numbers will continue. We're having normal sales. GTA-wide, we're going to have the 5,000 to 6,000 sales every month, probably well into November and December. So that's going to happen. Inventory is high, so it doesn't look quite as sexy as it could. If it was a low inventory, then we'd really notice the sales. But listen, it doesn't mean that everything's on the market is going to be too long. I've seen things sell very quickly. We saw the days on market in Midtown. Just some homes I actually walked by just the past few weeks. I've noticed they sold, and some of them quite quickly. A week, a few days, a couple of weeks. And if you were looking at a place like that, you thought, oh, well, listen, we're going to go on vacation, come back, and then no. Listen, if you like something, look at it. If it fits, if it ticks all the boxes, all the criteria, don't get distracted. Don't overthink. Plan what you have. Know exactly what it is that you want, and if you see it, nab it. Trust me, you'll be so happy that you did because you're doing this in a soft market. Price-wise, you've noticed prices are not really coming down much. This is year-over-year, 5% of GTA and in Midtown doing significantly better. So, and if you're looking, listen, obviously, you have my information at the bottom of the email, bottom of the video, and let me know if you're looking. I do know of off-market options because I'm actually in the area. Some of you have seen me door to door. I come by and say hi, drop something off, and I do keep an eye on something that's exclusive, coming soon, those kinds of things. So if you're looking in the area, I also hear some of the dirt in the neighborhood from neighbors. That's one of the benefits of being in the area, walking around, talking to people. So sellers, what should you be doing? Sales are happening, but you have to be patient. That's a really big deal. Patience is a really big deal. I know it's difficult. Believe me, I know. I've been in your position many times. I've sold homes, my own. That's an issue. It's hard, but be patient because things are selling. Be realistic, but don't be a doormat. And I say doormat because sometimes you've been in the market a month, maybe 2 months. You're not getting the kind of interest you want. You think it's a price, and so you start lowering the price. Everybody thinks that you lower the price, it's going to sell. That's not always the case. Have your realtor keep an eye out for what is selling and is there a pattern. In some areas, for example, one of the patterns I've seen regularly is something's really done to the nines, really beautifully renovated and everything. They tend to sell fast. The medium, not so well, and the crappy home, which used to be really kind of popular, the one that the fixer-upper, the one with a lot of potential, not quite as popular these days. I think it's because of the cost and that kind of thing in some areas. So have your realtor, if it's me, what I do is I look what is actually selling. I send it to them on a weekly basis to make sure that the seller actually knows. And again, is there a pattern? Are we in the pattern? Or are we not in the pattern? Because if you're not in the pattern, next point, price properly from the start, but the price might not be everything. If the pattern is that homes like yours are not the ones that tend to be selling, and you notice other homes maybe in the area that are priced lower than yours, they're still sitting on the market, maybe price isn't your issue. Maybe you lowering your price isn't the thing to do. I know it's difficult because sometimes you just don't know, but quite often I've seen personally, people lower the price and it still doesn't sell. But then you want to go back to a higher price, that makes negotiations more difficult. It creates a bit of a stigma in the house, like what's wrong with the house, what's up with the different price changes. What is it that they actually want? Do they know what they want? So price properly from the start, ideally. But remember that price is not everything, and dropping the price is not necessarily going to get your home sold the next day. Get a proper listing agent. All these things your agent should be telling you already. And if they haven't, they have to follow this. Well, listen, get a good one. Get one with proper professional photos, professional video, and these kind of things. I've gotten a lot of compliments on my more listing videos, which are a lot more better quality than these. And the photos have to be very good. Show the stuff that needs to be shown. Don't show the stuff that doesn't need to be shown. Get people into the actual property to see it themselves and make up their own minds. So that's what a good listing agent does. Of course, my information is at the bottom. I'm happy to chat with you. If you have any questions, maybe you're on the market already. I've had a few calls. I've had contact with people who are on the market. They contact me. I don't contact them. And they ask me some questions. So I'm like, hey, listen, maybe your person's doing fine, whatever. But if not, if you get doubts, whatever, later on, you have my information. Give me a shout. Maybe we can do something together. So, guys, until August, I will wish you a great rest of July. Thank you for watching this video. And I will wish you good luck if you're on the market. If you're not, give me a call. If you have questions, give me a call. Okay? Always. I'm here. Provide valuable information. Like and subscribe. And, don't be a stranger. I'll see you guys in August.